This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Jed's Barbershop. With 3 locations now, you have no reason to not always look your best. Go get a haircut, a beard trim, or even a straight razor shave. Jed's Barbershop is open 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday 9 to 7, and Sunday 12 to 5. They have a location downtown at 212 South, 700 East, and in Sugar House at 2153 East, 2100 South. They just opened up a 3rd location at 167 East, 900 South, right next to Randy's Records. No appointment is necessary. Head on over to jedsbarbershop.com for more information.
Showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
All right, welcome to episode 268 of I Am Salt Lake podcast. My name's Chris Hollifield.
And I'm Chrissy Shelley.
On today's episode of the podcast, we sit down and chat with CEO and co-founder of NAV, Levi King. We get a chance to find out his story. We find out who he is, what he does, what got him interested in becoming an entrepreneur and business leader, and what inspired him to start NAV. I know a lot of listeners might not even be familiar with NAV. Full disclaimer, Chrissy actually works for NAV. NAV just has such an amazing story, and the things that they're doing for small businesses is really awesome. So we wanted to bring Levi King on this episode and have him share his story.
Yeah, I've kind of been thinking for a while. I know it's a little bit different. This is more of a tech, he's more of a tech guy. I started working for this company because I met Levi, and I was really impressed with like how genuine he was and how much he cares about small businesses. And I get so excited about that because, like, as you know, I love watching people start small businesses and I want to see them succeed. And you do too, Chris,
and
obviously.
You're always coming home telling me about what your company's doing for small businesses, helping them with their credit, helping them, succeed as a small business. Because as we all know, it's not always easy. It
sucks in the financial world for small. And I grew up, my parents were entrepreneurs. So I grew up watching my parents struggle. And my mom just cry all the time because she couldn't get financing. She'd go to banks and there was no guide for small businesses to be able to find financing or know like how they're doing in so what I do for NAV is I help design tools for small business people to look at their financials, basically their credit score, how they stack up, how lenders will see them, whatever,
And we're going to get into all that with
stuff.
Levi
I'm
here.
Just kind of, I guess I'm over explaining.
So it was cool. I was able to bring the podcast recording gear to your offices down there.
Yeah, which was really fun to have you in the office. Yeah, it's in Draper right now.
Such a beautiful view there in your office.
Oh my gosh, it's so gorgeous.
It was so awesome to actually sit down. I've met Levi at a lot of your company parties, but it was nice to be able to sit down with him for about an hour and have him kind of share his story and kind of, unfold what got him to where he's at and what motivates him, what drives him to help people and to create such an amazing business as NAV. And like you were saying, how important it is for him to keep NAV, here in Utah.
Yeah, and that's what I loved about it, because they could easily go somewhere else,
We're lucky to have them here and to employ such amazing people like yourself,
and it's so
Chrissy.
Badass. We have like a bunch of chick developers. They're super into female empowerment. We're actually going to be doing like courses where we talk about that, like female empowerment at work. I don't think we even talked about that.
I don't think we did either.
It's a stellar place to work.
Yeah,
he's a great dude.
Listen to this interview that we did with Levi King. It's a really good interview. We're going to be playing it here in just a minute. As always, if this is your first time listening to this podcast, head on over to our website, iamsaltlake.com. This is where you can find all the back episodes of the podcast. You can listen to them right there online, or you can, there's some different ways you can subscribe: iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, TuneIn Radio, SoundCloud. We're on all the different outlets. Find whatever is easiest for you to remember and subscribe. That way all the podcasts get sent right to your smartphone or computer.
And it'll notify you when we put a new episode up.
Because we have been chatting with some awesome people here in the Salt Lake City area. We'd love for you to listen and share them with your family and friends. Hey, make sure you stay tuned for after the conversation with Levi King. We have a really cool thing we're going to start doing with our Patreon supporters by getting the interviews and conversations to you guys early. You can find out more about that by going to imsaltlake.com/supporter. We're going to get into that after the interview, though. I just wanted to mention it now at the beginning. I do want to mention, though, so today on Facebook, I made the announcement that you and I are going to have a sweet baby girl.
A little girl.
Yeah, I know.
I will glue bows on her head, even though we've had the discussion that you think it's silly.
I just think it's silly to do that. But, you know,
she doesn't have hair.
I know a while back we mentioned that we were going to have a baby. We just found out the sex of the baby this past week.
Yeah.
And we weren't sure, how do we share that with everybody? How do we share this awesome news? How do we, share it with our listeners, our family? And, we didn't have any spectacular photos to post online of like, oh, look at this cute little, baby shoes or something like that. But we're excited, and we're excited to kind of share that journey with you guys as well as doing this podcast. A lot of people say that I don't know, since this is my first kid, what I really have in store for that. And so, we're going to be kind of sharing those journeys with you guys. I'm excited. It's been fun to do this podcast for almost 5 years and kind of watch my life change and unfold. And now to add a baby to the mix. And hopefully when this little baby's old enough, she'll go back and listen to the last 5 years of her father's life as he kind of does that journey in Salt Lake of cool. Getting to know all the rad people here. And then as her mother joined the podcast. So I'm
a little recorded history for her.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I really am excited for this.
It's going to be so fun.
Yeah. Well, you already know what's coming.
I do. And I'm excited. I'm like, grow quick, baby. I want to hold you.
Hey, this episode is also sponsored by Oleo Skin and Beard. If you're like us, your skin is dry. If you're like me, your beard is dry. You need to moisturize. Oleo Skin and Beard, they carry a ton of amazing skin oils, beard butters for moisturizing and shaping the beard, even some great facial cleansers.
Oh, so much great facial stuff for women. And men. Men can do their facials too.
Head on over to their website, oleoskin.com. It's where you can order directly from the website. You can also find out what shops carry them locally here in the Utah area. They're all over Utah County, Salt Lake County. I'm not sure if they're up in Ogden, but they are opening up a store. Yeah. I don't really know all the details. I've been kind of following them on Facebook, so make sure to connect with them on Facebook.
Or on Instagram. If you follow them on Instagram, that's
I think they're a little more busy. I think they're a little more active on Instagram.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. I used to be a lot more active on Instagram. I just have a really hard time.
It's hard for me because I'm like, what do people want to, like, what do you take pictures of?
Well, they're going to get a lot of baby pictures here soon. So you guys have no idea what you're in store for. I'm one of those guys. But anyway, let's jump into that conversation that we had with Levi King, co-founder of NAV. This is a great story. You're going to want to listen to the entire thing. A lot of inspiration and motivation. I know I felt it chatting with him. Make sure to stay tuned, though, for after the episode. We got a lot more we want to share with you guys, but we want to get into that interview with him now. This interview, like I said, was actually recorded at NAV in beautiful Draper, Utah. Great place to be located. So here's that conversation. Enjoy. Where's home? Like, where did you grow up?
I grew up, born and raised in Notus, Idaho.
Okay.
Outside of town. It's a big town of 300. And it's spelled Notus, but so the joke is nobody notices it, but that's not how it's spelled. And I moved twice growing up. The first time I was like 9 or 10, I burned our house down. So we moved down the road to my grandparents' house, half mile. And then we moved back, and 4 years or 5 years later, my brother burned it down. So then we moved to my grandparents again, and then we moved back. So technically grew up the same spot my whole life with 2 moves thanks to house burn downs.
So you said you have a brother.
I have 2 adopted brothers,
3
adopted sisters, and then there's 5 of us that are natural born.
Wow. So you have a pretty big family.
Yeah. I always joke that my parents needed cheap labor for the farm.
Only 2 of you burnt the house down.
Yeah, just 2 of us. It's not bad.
It's pretty good odds.
What kind of farm?
We raised grains, all types of grains, alfalfa, and then we had 100 beef cattle or so.
Wow.
It was a small operation. My dad worked a full-time job my whole life, worked the swing shift at a dairy, and worked the farm during the day.
So, I mean, were you out there on the farm helping?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I was the oldest son and the only responsible son as it related to doing farm work. And the house is a little traditional in the sense of girls doing a lot more work in and around the house and boys doing a lot more work on the farm, which now kind of makes me laugh. I had one sister that was more of a tomboy, and I think like that means I did a bunch extra work that I shouldn't have had to do, like equal rights. We should have all had to
Like
lift
they
the
could have
damn
been out
bales of
there
hay
too.
and shoveling dirt. Yeah. And they were out there, but not nearly as much. So yeah, it was a lot of responsibility because my dad, he worked the swing shift. So every day he'd go to work at about 3:30, come home at midnight. So changing in the summertime, irrigating, farm work up until dark, and then feeding the cows at night in the winter when we had to feed them hay.
So a pretty good work ethic.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you grew up hard work. It wasn't just sitting around, kids
Playing video
nowadays
games.
with their iPhones and playing video games and
Yeah, no. I got a Nintendo when I was like 12. I played Super Mario Brothers for 6 hours, won it, and I was like, "What? That's it? That's all this is?" And Duck Hunt
Really?
just
The
seems,
first time you won
some.
Super Mario?
Yep. And in Duck Hunt, I thought was stupid because I actually hunted ducks, but nobody hunts them with pistols. And so I sold it to my brother, and that was it. I've never been a gamer ever since. That was actually the last gaming device I played was the original Nintendo.
wow.
But I mean, we grew up, I had guns, had a crappy motorcycle. Like there was just more interesting entertainment than video games growing up on a farm.
So when did you know you wanted to not be a farmer?
It was pretty early on. My dad got roped into farming by his dad. So from a pretty young age, my dad told me like, this isn't your future. So I joked, like I never had it in me. I didn't wear cowboy boots. I didn't listen to country music like a lot of other kids where I was from. And I just knew it wasn't my future. I mean, from a young age, I don't know where it came from, but I recognized that there was a major disconnect between how hard we worked and how little money we had. I remember asking my dad about it. One of the funny stories, I remembered the conversation, but he remembers it better than me. I think I was 10 or 11, and we went to the store or the industrial complex where you buy seed. Mm-hmm. So we were buying corn seed so we could seed the fields in the spring. And I was like, and I was young enough that it was like $2,000 and it blew my mind. It seemed like so much money for seed. And I was like, Dad, so once we do all this work, we work all summer, we harvest this, how much money will you get? And he's like, we don't know because you try to explain commodities, which didn't make any sense to me. And I'm like, so I started to get frustrated. I'm like, but you've got to know like some kind of number. And he said, if I remember right, he said something like $10,000. Mm-hmm. And I just got pissed. I'm like, where does all the money go? There's a lot of money. We never have money. We'd eat at McDonald's like twice a year. Like just never had money. And so I was pissed off. Like I could do that simple of math at that age, right? Like where's this extra money? Where are you keeping it? And he's like, no, there's water expenses, taxes. So he tries to explain like we put diesel fuel on the tractors. They break down. And I lectured him for like a half hour on how stupid it was to live a life where you couldn't predict how much money you would make. I just thought that was the dumbest thing. And we laugh about it now. He's like, I drove him crazy because that was one of many times where I would get after him and like lecture him on something like, this is dumb. We need to do something else. You need to sell this place and we need to do some other kind of business, which the great irony is then my whole career, I've only ever worked for myself, which you can't predict success. So some punk kid who thought he was smart and then ended up pursuing something similar. And
does your dad still have the farm? Is the farm still going on up there?
It is, but he rents it out. He's rented it out for, I don't know, 10 or 15 years now.
Okay.
Yep.
So you mentioned, I mean, you've always worked for yourself. You were saying, I mean, never a normal job. Not even like a fast food job when you.
Not fast food. So in high school, I wasn't allowed to get a job because I had to work at the farm, and so I do odd jobs here and there to try to pick up a few bucks because there was no money in it for me either working on the farm. But the first real job I got was when I went to college. It was just shoveling concrete until I wrecked the dump truck. So that job didn't last long. But I worked just crappy college jobs.
Sure.
But for my any real career job, I dropped out of college to start my first business, and I've only ever had my own business since then.
So where'd you go to college?
I went to Ricks College, now BYU, Idaho, for less than a year. I was invited to leave campus by the dean's office and not return.
We started the Invited to Leave Ricks College Club here.
Yeah.
You dropped out of college then? You actually never
Well,
finished.
I didn't. Yes, I didn't finish, and then I went on an LDS mission, and I came home, and I enrolled. I think at UVU. I can't remember if I got into BYU or not. I had to get my record expunged so that I could get into BYU, but I can't remember if I actually got in. So I enrolled, and then withdrew. Decided to start my first business. So dropped out is a little bit of an exaggeration because I didn't start the semester.
What was your first business then?
A manufacturing company. It was so I was enrolled at UVU in like this summer or something, and then got a job at a sign company in Provo called Hallmark Signs, and started to work there. And the guy could see I could work hard, and I was relatively smart. He asked me, "What do you want to do when you're done with college?" And I said, "I don't know. I just know I want to own my own business someday." And he said, "Well, why don't you stick around here for something like a year? I'll teach you the ropes if you'll leave the state to start a business." So then I moved to Boise, Idaho, got my licensing. I was like 22, 23 years old, and started. First, it was just servicing electric signs because I didn't have money for equipment or anything, and then borrowed $15,000. my first month, I profited like $8,000, which blew my mind. I did like a times 12 on the calculator, and like seriously almost passed out, like $96,000 a year if I could do this in profit, you know. And
how you said 22?
22 or 23.
I mean, that's great money for a young kid.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
that's great money.
That's
for
great
me.
money for.
Yeah, I mean,
I was living with my wife in a $300 a month crappy apartment, just running. I would drive around at night, look for signs that were burned out, and then the next day I would call scared me to death, and I would just pitch on price. Like I charged $45, not $90, and then got enough work. And actually, the truth is, I was too chicken to do it that way. So I worked at a sign company. I went to my boss. He was probably 70, and I said, I was really naive, and I said, I want to go part-time. It was after I got my licensing. I want to go part-time because I want to start my own sign company. And so I did the math, and with my wife's job at Micron and my job, if I worked 3 days a week for him, and then I worked 2 weekdays and then the weekends for me, I could, even if I didn't make any money, we could pay the bills. And so it was actually kind of a low-risk way to start. And he's like, okay. And then, like 2 weeks later, he calls me in on a Monday, and he's like, he lit into me, like literally screaming at me. Office door open. People in the warehouse could hear, like, because someone had spotted me with a truck and a ladder over the weekend that said King Electric Signs. Actually said King Size Signs. Different story. Stupidest name ever to name your company. And I was like, Bob, I just like 2 weeks ago, I sat right here in your office and said, I want to go part-time because I want to start my own company. And he just was like yelling at me, how old are you? I didn't think you were serious. I thought you had some crazy idea and you'd be back in a couple of weeks and go full-time. It's like, I can't have you working here. You're a competitor. And I was naive because I was like, I got a pickup truck and a 32-foot extension ladder. Like this guy had a manufacturing facilities, multiple boom trucks, like millions of dollars in equipment. And so in my head, I just didn't, even though they did service work too. Yeah, I technically was, but I was so naive. I just remember being blown away. And he belittled me in front of everybody and chased me off. That's actually a lesson I've taken, and that I swore I would never treat people like that. Belittle employees. Mm-hmm. Like it was just unnecessary. And he said, okay, like not my fault that you didn't realize I was serious.
He just can't believe that you actually put the effort in and like followed through.
Yeah. He was just blown away.
That's on him, man.
And I was as surprised as he was, right? That's the great irony. But now looking back, that was pretty naive of me to go in to the boss and say, hey, I want to go part-time. And I wasn't demanding it. I was hopeful he would say yes, because then it would de-risk starting the business. So that was one of the scariest days of my life, though, because then I knew, like, I can't pay the bills now if I don't make this happen. And I'm an introvert. It literally scared me to death. Now I think it's so funny. I'm like, I'm calling to say I'll do something for half the cost of someone else, and it's the same level of service. Mm-hmm. And I'm literally scared to death. Sweat rings down to my waist. I'm calling, like, can I talk to someone about your sign service? You know, you leave messages all the time, and then people would call back. I'd answer from my crappy apartment. It'd be like, King Size Signs. They say, like, can I have the service department, please? I'd be like, hold, please. Like, breathing in and out, like, calm myself down and be like, service, this is Levi, you know. And I totally played it cool. And then that year ended up getting, it was profitable, did $150,000 in profit that first year. Just dumped it all back into equipment, buying equipment free and clear. And but that's how it was a crazy, wild start. I was out for the first 2 years, literally scared to death all the time. I just was scared. I couldn't sleep. I would sleep at night and just dream I was working. So then I wake up and I'd be like, did I sleep? I can't tell. I can't tell if I just thought about work all night or if I dreamed about it.
Like you woke up exhausted from working?
Yeah. I was just scared. It took me 2 years for it to become believable that there would be enough work the next month to pay all the bills. Because along the way, I was hiring people and getting overhead. Mm-hmm. So after 2 years, I had to invoice and bill $60,000 a month just to break even. And so that's like scary. I'm young. I cared about the people who work for me. They had kids, right? They're married, whatever. And so it was just a lot of pressure for the age, but it was the best business ever to start because it was so stupid. So it's such a dumb business for somebody my age to start because it was such a complex business model. So you have the art side of it. So I'd have a designer, sales, go hustle jobs to manufacture. Mm-hmm. Then you got a designer that's design and have a compelling design to show. Then you got to estimate the work. And then you got to have, if you get the job, then you got to have sheet metal guy, welder, neon tube bender, one that works the plastics and the vinyl, professional painter at a paint booth, like the same type of paint booth that you painted a car in. That's the quality paint you have to use. And then a guy to run the install crew and run your boom truck. I mean, just stupid business.
Like
to
so
start.
much overhead.
Yeah. Overhead and just complex. Like if you're manufacturing the same widget all the time, that's complicated, but every widget was different. This is custom electric science. So it was like the most complex job. And then you had like construction, right? So you don't just build it, but then you have to go put it up. Dig holes, put in concrete, stick it in your pole.
So there's a lot of liability too for your first business. What made you eventually decide you don't want to do that anymore? Yeah,
it's a good question. So it was a few years in. I was slated to be I can't remember if it was in charge of the Chamber of Commerce in Nampa, Idaho, like the second biggest town in Idaho, or just some position there, which was like a great way to get business, right? Most of our customers were other small businesses. And the guy who was mentoring me was probably 60, maybe 55, owned a financial services company like Wealth Management or whatever, and was really well known in the community. And they had the annual Chamber of Commerce meeting, and he came riding in on a fake horse, dressed like Marilyn Monroe, singing and dancing around the stage and just like acting crazy. And I watched him and I thought, that's me next year. Like, this is my life. And there is no way in hell I could ever do that and pull it off. And so his life was schmooze, right? A financial planner. And I didn't understand personality types and all that stuff back then, but I was like, that will be a living hell for me. This is not just my future next year. Like, this is the life I'll have to live forever. And it scared me. It's like, that's not what I want to do. I don't want to schmooze like crazy the rest of my life with all these different people that I got nothing in common with. So that was literally in that moment, I was like, there was this other business I was looking at, but in that moment I was like, okay, I am not going to be. I remember he thought I was crazy when I'm like, nope, I'm not doing it. It's like, this is your future, like this is the future for him. And he's like, you're in an amazing spot. And everybody told me I was crazy when I sold that business. Ended up no regrets, but yeah, that was the moment. I could not dance and sing like Marilyn Monroe, I guess.
Oh, you probably could. I've seen some of the execs here do it.
Should we jump into, what led you to starting NAV then?
How'd you get into
where you're at present day?
Yeah. So fast forward through several small businesses that were all successful in a small business way. I knew you guys can cut a lot of this out. So I'll tell you details that are pivotal, but I'm not, I don't know which ones you want to hear, but so grew up in a non-tech house at all, right? Like nothing. Went on my mission. People are talking about like internet. I went in 1996. I'm like, what the hell is internet? Like guys are coming in 1998, but right before going, they're like, hey, how do you check your email? I'm like, what the hell's email? Like I literally had no idea. Come home, start the business. I read a ton. I've always read a ton of books, and I realized in like 2001, like, wow, I just missed like the most important moment in like industrial history, right? The .com bust. I'm like, holy shit.
So you missed the whole thing through the bust.
Yeah. I wasn't paying attention. I didn't know what was going on. No. I at some point had email and stuff, but I still didn't get what the heck it was. Like when I got married in 99, I found a hotel on the internet, not even quite understanding what it was. and thought for sure it was a scam. Like till we got there, I'm like, this is some kind of weird scam.
Oh, like you booked a hotel and
I found a hotel online and I called it and I gave him a credit card over the phone and I'm like, this is a scam. Like we're getting scammed,
Oh man.
And so that's how little I knew. And so anyways, I kind of had regrets. Like, man, I wish I would have, maybe if I had gone to college, been like an engineer. And I thought in my head, to own a tech company, you have to be an engineer. Like I just had this blocker in my head. So in 2005, I think it was, I read this article in Inc. magazine called Lucky or Smart, written by Bo Peabody of Village Ventures. And he later wrote a short book that I have here at the office. It's so entertaining, but he tells us his story of going to college in like 93 or 94. He's got an engineer roommate. He's very honest in how he tells his story. He doesn't know what the internet is, but his roommate does. Wants to start a business. He doesn't know what's going on. He writes a business plan that says internet like 1,000 times, gets venture capital. They release a homepage called Tripod for people. Still doesn't get what's going on. Downloaded 60 million times. They sell the Lycos, but they can't sell their stock. He doesn't know. Like the whole time he realizes he's getting lucky. Lycos goes public. He sells all of his stock in like 2000 or 1999. Makes a boatload of money. Puts it all in real estate. Has time to, because he could understand that. Has time to learn.
Yeah.
And then cashes it out before the real estate bust. So he tells a story about how like the point is like, are you lucky or smart? Like you need to be smart enough to realize when you're getting lucky. But in my head, I had this blocker that you had to be an engineer to start a tech company. And when I read this guy's story, I was like, he's not an engineer. And now it's so silly to me that I thought I'm lamenting that I missed the moment because I wasn't an engineer. Like what a stupid blocker in my head. But in that moment, I decided, like, there's moments in my life where, like, I just knew I was going to do something. And that was the moment. I didn't know how or when, but I was like, someday I'm going to have a tech company. And then it was 2006, I started a business that became Lendio, which we tried to make a tech company. And ultimately, it's just a big business loan broker. We tried to do a tech play, marketing tech.
That's a Utah company, Utah-based.
At the time, I was in Denver. My business partner was here, but I moved here. That's how I got to Utah originally.
So let's actually, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people listening might not even be familiar with NAV. And I mean, we can even talk a little bit more about it when we do the intro to this. But I mean, what is NAV?
So NAV is kind of inspired by Lendio because we had the loan broker model and decided business owners, they just, from my own experience being a business owner across multiple businesses, but then being a loan broker, they really struggle to understand the data that lenders use to make risk-based decisions on them. So you want $20,000 and it's cheap, it's expensive, or you can't get it, but there's no transparency around why that is. And there's no good resource to help you fix what's off. So kind of to educate and then help you move the needle on what's off. And so that's what inspired me to leave and start NAV with my business partner. Is I wanted to get more on the advocate side of the line and say, like, because all these business owners, they get expensive financing, like they have a real business. They're not that far away from being able to get a lot better financing. If they have cheaper financing, they save money. They can give it to themselves. They can pay their employees more. They could get better customer service. Like it's better for everybody if you have in the economy, if you have healthy small business.
What's the timeline, like when this all started?
NAV?
Yeah, the idea when it started. I mean, how many years ago, or is it a fairly new company?
I think Kate and I first had the idea in 2009, but I was in neck deep at Lendio and he was a couple years into his law firm. And so we kicked it around and just waited for the right timing. And there was some moments, a couple key moments at Lendio where something inside of me died and I decided this isn't my future. So I gave notice in early 2012 to Lendio that I was going to leave and do this. It didn't go over well with our investors or with my business partner. So I ended up giving a year notice. So we started this business in 2012, I think in May, but that full year I was still working for Lendio and doing this on the side. So that was a tough year. And then we launched at the end of 2012 with a crappy product. We didn't employ people like Chrissy yet at that point. So it was not beautiful, but it worked. And there was enough evidence that there was demand for it that we plowed forward.
Have you heard a lot of this story, Chrissy?
Yeah.
Do you know a lot about a lot of this?
I think I know a lot of it, right?
Yeah.
Is he saying anything here that...
I've pretty much heard this story. He has a great story.
Yeah.
And I can tell you from my experience, I was referred to come apply at NAV when it was Creditera. And I was like, oh, whatever, sure, I'll go interview, whatever. And then when I met Levi, and I was like, he genuinely cares about small businesses. Like, this guy wants to make something that want to help other people. And I was just sold. I'm like, I want to work for a CEO that cares about community and small businesses and like really wants to make things better for other people. And it's been the best decision I ever made, like as an employee.
Awesome.
Honestly.
We actually have to take a quick break for a message from our sponsor, but we're going to come back to the conversation. So hang tight, and we'll be back to chat with Levi some more. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Jed's Barbershop. With 3 locations now, you have no reason to not always look your best. Go get a haircut, a beard trim, or even a straight razor shave. Jed's Barbershop is open 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday 9 to 7, and Sunday 12 to 5. They have a location downtown at 212 South, 700 East, and in Sugar House at 2153 East, 2100 South. They just opened up a 3rd location at 167 East, 900 South, right next to Randy's Records. No appointment is necessary. Head on over to jedsbarbershop.com for more information. I don't know where we should start with the second half at.
Well, I'll start. So what is your hope for small business owners? Like, what is the point of NAV and why do you care?
So our vision is very grandiose. It's to decrease the death rate of small business in the U.S. and hopefully eventually other countries. And the way that we hope to do that is through financial education, credit financial education. The better that your credit is as a small business owner and the better access you have to inexpensive financing, the higher the likelihood you're going to thrive and succeed. And so that's it. I mean, I think back to my time as a small business owner, and it was just such a damn struggle. At every one, there wasn't a single one of them that wasn't very difficult to get off the ground or that I went through very difficult times. And there was opportunities I missed because I couldn't get loans, or the loan I could get was too expensive and it didn't pencil out. And there's other times I was able to get a loan that it made a big difference. Like I was at my sign company, I was renting a boom truck. Like I didn't have a truck that could lift really heavy things. And so I penciled it out one day, spending like $5,000 a month, but I could make a payment on a $150,000 boom truck for $2,000 a month. And I went to the bank and they're like, we're not going to give you money. And I called the equipment place. I'm like, they're not going to give me money. And he said, why don't you lease it? And so he hooks me up and he's like, there's no interest. I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. So I do the math, figure out there is. It's like 12%, which at the time seemed high, but it's still penciled out. I'm going to save $3,000 a month. So to have $3,000 extra in profit a month, like that might have been the time that I stopped paying myself minimum wage and could afford like a living wage as a small business owner. But there's so many examples in small business where the odds are greater you will succeed if you have good credit and you can lean on financing that's affordable.
So can NAV actually help small businesses here in Utah for people listening?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like
Absolutely.
So say a small business is listening right now and they want to, I don't know, find out more about NAV, how they can help. What can NAV do to help small business, I guess?
Well, I think and this is me jumping in. One of my favorite things is we build these tools that they can get on. They can, for free, look at their business credit score and next to their personal credit score, or at least a grade, and know kind of where they're at.
Sure.
And we have loan counselors that they can call and talk to and they can have them look at their credit, give them advice, say which kind of loans could be best for them, can actually compare and like really learn, because the financial industry, the small business lending industry has kind of been held hostage for a really long time. And small business owners could only take what they could get or sit in the car and cry after going to 8 banks. And, and so our whole thing is like, well, Levi's whole thing that I kind of jumped on board.
No, you're fine. Well, no, just because
is it really opening it up and being like, you have these options and this is what you need to get to these options. And this is how it can benefit you. Cause there's no real advocate for small business owners when like getting a loan with a slightly better interest rate or something could make or break your business. And that there's never been a place where people can go and get real, honest help.
Well, the only reason I say that is because, I know we have a lot of listeners of the show that are small business owners here in Salt Lake and in Utah.
To so many other
We've had a lot of people on the podcast, And I can guarantee they're not familiar with Nav. And so I'd like to connect them with you.
Yeah, we would love that. We have a couple thousand customers in Utah, but they found us through one channel or another. So yeah, the more people here we can help, the better. But my favorite stories are the ones that we see in our internal tools. Like a lot of the people we help, it's not super visible to us because they've got their data, they're working on it. It's visible in data, but their story's not visible. But we have an internal team that's always talking to customers to get examples. But even more than here's a customer that got an SBA loan, which is an inexpensive type of financing, to me are the ones that we'll see on a regular basis where it's like, I've been working with this customer for 6 months. They were able to understand all their data and make XYZ improvements. And that led to this inexpensive financing. Because for me, that was the frustrating part. I mean, as a business owner, the listeners of this, they are scrappy. Like they can handle bad news. They're going to get bad news all the time. But what is so frustrating is a no with no explanation in any category. Like you're trying to pitch a customer. Like when I would lose a manufacturing job and I got no, I hated it if I couldn't get why. Like I want to know, why did I not get the job so I could do better next time? So I think business owners are really good at hearing no, but we just hate not having transparency. So for me, that's the part that drove me nuts with financing. I go into a bank and I couldn't get a loan. And it's on the heels of them saying, yeah, I'm sure we can help you. And then they pull my credit and look at stuff. They say we can, with no transparency as to why. So for me, I get the most gratification out of the customer stories where we really made that difference. And it changed. Like the outcome has changed for those people because they improved their information, their data, and then they were able to find success.
What advice would you give to people that are starting their own business right now?
I'm like, have a weird attitude about advice. I feel like advice is so situational and highly dynamic to the individual and the situation. But, if I look back at the things I wish I would have done, one is I would have asked, I would have really vetted things better that I was going to do and really made sure there was, what was the market? What were the margins? If I ask my mom or dad, hey, what do you think? I want to take this risk. They're going to say, you're a genius, do it. But guess what? I've been a genius since the day I was born in their minds. So you really have to do a good job soliciting advice from people that aren't invested emotionally in the outcome of whatever it is you decide to do. But this is advice I still get and don't believe. I'm optimistic to a fault. And so whatever you think your numbers are going to be, they'll be like 25% of that. So plan on revenues being 1/4 of what you estimate and spend around that plan, and you'll be in a lot better spot.
If you had a chance to like start your career over again, is there anything you would do differently that you can think specifically?
No. I mean, with what I know now, like I've had a blast. Like I've had crazy experiences. There's no, I live in the Bay Area now and work in Utah 2 days a week, but I feel like I have like a crazy background for a tech entrepreneur in the Bay Area. I didn't go to Stanford.
Yeah.
My parents weren't white collar. And I feel like sometimes I have more in common with immigrants in the Bay Area than I do a lot of my natural born American born peers. But no, it's just been such a wild ride. It's been a very rich experience. And
you actually got an opportunity were asked to move the company to the Bay Area at one point, and you said no. Let's keep it in Utah.
Yeah, that's kind of. I tried to raise money, and a lot of investors said, if you will move to the Bay Area, we'll back you. Just assumed that a financial technology company couldn't be successful in Utah. That drove me nuts. Yeah. To be candid. And part of the reason I moved was to just move me. When I raised the money from our $6 million round from Kleiner Perkins, I said I would move part of the team to the Bay Area, and it was just me. But Utah has amazing talent, like tremendous talent. And that's probably true of most markets, but Utah also has this, I just think, unique blend of people that work harder, are more loyal, more grounded. I don't know if it's the outdoors. Like most people in Utah like nature, like the outdoors. There are things about Utah and the labor force that I think are unique in a good way.
How long ago did you move to the Bay Area then from Utah here?
Almost 3 years.
Was that tough?
It was tough on my kids. We moved into a much smaller and less comfortable house because it's so expensive there. it's been amazing. It's been a wonderful experience as well. My wife and I, we joke that we're transients that aren't super poor. We like to go places and see things. We've been to 49 of the 50 states and 70 countries. We like to see places. So it was an adventure, but it was tough, especially for my older kids.
What do you miss about living in Utah full time?
I'll tell you what I don't miss, because we love Utah. Because what I don't miss is way more simple. We love Utah, love the outdoors, love downtown, such a clean, beautiful downtown. We're foodies. There's great restaurants. I don't miss the cold. It's that simple.
Oh, I'm with you.
That's fair.
I'm not a fan of the winter time.
No, I'm really, not now either.
I'm genuine, and I know that sounds crazy because we have the best snow on earth, and I think a lot of it is because of my day job. Typically, I have to be outdoors a lot more than the typical person. So maybe if I got out of there, I'd enjoy winter. But do you ski or snowboard at all? Or anything
I snowboard, and before we moved here, we lived in Denver for 5 or 6 years, or Denver Metro, and I didn't mind the cold. And it took me a while to figure out it's the inversion. It's going sometimes what feels like a couple months without seeing the blue skies that just drives me nuts. So I can handle the cold, but I don't like the cold with no
gray.
Do you feel you breathe better in the Bay Area?
I think so, but it's totally subjective.
Okay, so but when you come here, right? Before this interview, you just barely flew in today, right? Yesterday. When you got here, was it hard to breathe? At all, or is it more the elevation?
Yesterday and today we had.
I'm just curious. I don't know.
Oh no, I know totally. I know when I went out for a few days to San Mateo to work, and then when I got back, I got really sick, and I wonder if it was the inversion, because it was in December. It was during the bad inversion.
Yeah, I've become a baby about it. Like I'll get out of in the winter when I usually take this flight. Sometimes I'm coming out of the airport at 9 a.m. I step out, like my lungs feel like they're going to collapse, and I'm like, this is bullshit. I can't believe it's so cold here. I feel like a baby, but that's the nice thing about the Bay Area.
What's the weather like over there in the Bay Area right now?
First 2 years, there was this pretty severe drought, so there wasn't even that much rain in the winter. But it's pretty moderate year round. We've had a lot of rain this winter, but still, rain isn't snow.
Well, like when you left yesterday, what was the weather?
It's been raining a lot, but yesterday I think it was no rain, blue skies.
Like 60 degrees.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I'm just trying to get jealous.
You're just trying to picture it and live there in your brain. I grew up in
Southern California. I guess it's different than Northern. But so where do you see NAV going? With all this, like, where do you see NAV in 5 years? Is that a safe question to ask?
Sure.
I'm sure you have goals and dreams with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that become possible for our company, and I think our product, when we have a lot of scale, so I'll pick an arbitrary number, but when we have 1 million customers, there's a lot of things that we can do really well that we can't do really well right now. Like our product's amazing for everybody, but we don't go really deep on an industry vertical and say like, okay, you're a home builder. Right now, we do a really good job solving maybe 80% of their problems as it relates to financing credit, but we don't have enough home builders to make where it makes sense to take that last 20% effort. So 5 years from now, I expect we'll have over 1 million customers. We'll be one of the most successful by impact in numbers of customers, small business companies ever. And I think we'll truly make an impact. We'll get some critical mass, but by then it will be more quantifiable, where we can say like this is how many we help stay in business and thrive as we gain more and more visibility and did more and more data.
And maybe Chrissy needs to shut her ears for this one. I don't know, but do you see NAV always staying in Utah? Do you see? Or is that a tough question to answer too?
It's not tough. There's no question NAV will stay in Utah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have. There's never a single discussion where we say, well, let's move the company or the majority of the company to the Bay Area. We say, there's never a discussion where we say, let's have like part of engineering or product there. There's 9 of us there. So we'll hire in the Bay Area opportunistically, and we'll hire in Utah opportunistically. But there's just very few times when Utah doesn't give us what we need.
Sure.
The tech economy in Utah does tend to be a little more enterprise SaaS, pretty B2B heavy. So sometimes in our business, a lot of what we do feels a lot more consumerish. Like small business is a lot closer to consumer than it is enterprise. But so it doesn't mean we're not going to hire in the Bay Area or we have a problem with people in the Bay Area. It's just, we've got a lot of magic happening here. And that's why we have the folks in the San Mateo office come out once or more a month to come work in this office. And
how many, you said 9 people are in San Mateo? Is that how many people, how many people are employed now?
Altogether?
About 75, about 85 altogether.
And from what I understand, I mean, in the short while I've known Chrissy, I mean, you've just been constantly hiring, right? I mean, it's been growing.
Yeah, sometimes
I mean,
faster,
I've been to some of the parties and get-togethers, and you're always mentioning like, oh, you know, the company's growing and growing and growing. I mean, do you see it just constantly going upwards, I guess?
Yeah, it will go through. I think last year we doubled about in size, and this year we'll probably grow by 30% or so. It'll kind of come in waves depending on what we're adding to the product and different initiatives year to year. But we'll grow for a long time.
What motivates you as a person? Just kind of a little bit about Levi now. Like, I'm sure you have days where you're just like, gosh, I don't have it in me today. But then you have to kind of reach into that little pocket of motivation.
Yeah, it's something I obsessed over for like 10 years because I've just always been highly motivated my whole life and really wanted to get at the core of what motivated me. And I felt like I had this real like growing up moment probably when I was around 30, 10 years ago, where I admitted to myself that all of my motives were fear-based. Just a lot of fear from growing up. Like, I don't want to be broke. Like, I don't need to be rich, but I don't want to be broke. I want to be able to provide for my kids. I've never missed payroll for my employees, and that scares me. So that's a fear. So I looked at all these motivations, and for a long time, I interpreted it as fear was at the core of all my motivations. Probably for 3 to 5 years, kind of came to grips because that's not manly. Like, I grew up in a manly environment, right? Like on a farm, and you're supposed to be tough. And I'm like, that's pretty wimpy to just be motivated by fear in life. So it was pretty tough for me to admit that to myself. And then eventually I was able to connect different dots and realize, no, like the fear comes from the love that I have for the people around me. So my motivation is just love. I love my kids. I love my wife. I love the life that we have and the things that we get to do and we have done. I love my employees. I tell them, it probably sounds cheesy to them, but I tell them usually once a month that I love them, and it's literal to me. Like, I am grateful that they have chosen to spend this part of their life at this company, to adopt the dream that I have and my business partner had. Like, that's a big deal for people to make that decision. So love is what motivates me. It's this weird interdependent relationship of love and fear that just coexists all the time. But to be clear, I have a blast. Like I love it. A friend of mine, his wife cancer came back the third time. They got 3 little kids, and she'll die this time. And they're about the same age. And I just, got some moments to reflect and think, like, I've been pretty lucky, me and my wife. Like, we haven't suffered tragedy, but we've been through some really, really hard times. And the irony is it's by choice. Like, I brought it on the family. It's always something hard in business, but we've been lucky not to have tragedy. So that's kind of why I hesitate and say I wouldn't change anything. It's just been a good life, even though it's been rough enough. Sometimes I blew out a blood vessel in my eye a couple weeks ago. Had a real rough week and had a bloodshot eye. Still a little bit left, but it's
not funny. But
I chose it. It's fun. It's like I can simultaneously have the most stressful week ever and love every minute of it.
What are some of your other hobbies and interests besides work? Besides whatever? What do you do for fun? Anything?
My wife and I travel a lot. As I mentioned earlier, we travel a lot domestically. Now we travel internationally a lot. This year we'll go to Fiji for the 3rd time and the UK for the 1st time.
Nice.
I spend a lot of time with my kids. I work a lot. I don't have a lot of interests outside of my family and work. Like, most of my social life is work. That's also kind of dorky, but like, I just like hanging out with the people that I work with. I love to read and consume. It used to be just books, but now lots of different types of content. I never got into video. I like to listen to stuff, and I love to read, but I never quite got into video.
Do you have a favorite book?
I have lots of favorite books. So favorite for me are the ones that had the biggest impact on my life, which, so it's not going to be like the greatest piece of literature ever, but yeah, I have some. It's funny timing because I made a list for a couple employees that I'm going to publish to our company on.
Oh, right on.
Well, do you care to recommend a book or two?
Yeah, I always hesitate to give recommendations because, again, I feel like it's so dynamic. Recommendations are so dynamic. Like some of the books that have had the biggest impact on me, another person might read and go like, why the hell is this a big deal? But for me, because of some painful experiences I've gone through in my career, learning to try to be a good leader and good manager, there's key books that I read at certain times that really liberated me from a pain or struggle that I had. So for one example is a book called First Break All the Rules by Marcus Buckingham that kind of goes through the brain science or how our brains develop and how by, I think it's like 10, it's been a decade since I read it, but how by age 10 we're wired. We're good at some things, we're wired for those, and there's things we're not wired for. And it's a losing battle to try to excel at everything. So that in a nutshell, it's whether it's in your life or in your job, you owe it to your family or the business you work for to just really excel at the things you're wired for, and then just be mediocre, like accept mediocrity in the other things, but be transparent and honest with the people around you so you can set the right expectations. And so that liberated me from this misery of trying to be good at things I'm not to make other people happy. So like we joked at the time at the company that I sent an email where I came out of the closet to the employees with my terrible personality type, which is aggressive, analytical, AKA asshole. And so I'm not an asshole, but I always would seem like it to people. Resting face, not resting face. And so, but that then gave everyone permission to make fun of me when I would accidentally say dumb things. And I have said a lot, like Carly, who's worked for me for like 8 years, she has countless stories of dumb things I've said to her, even when I would try to say something nice. So that book liberated me from trying to be someone I'm not. So now when I hire someone and they report to me directly, I set expectations. Like I will never remember to say good morning, good evening. Like days are it's just one long day of life to me. I'll always look mad, but I'm not. Like I care that you're gainfully employed, that you have a paycheck and that you progress in your career. And I won't always remember to say that. And so that expectation has to be set because I'll just say dumb things now and then. I give you a great example if you want one.
Let's hear it.
So but right before I read this book, as I was trying to work on these things, I came in one day and Carly was wearing like this shirt from Anthropology that had like a flower, like 3D, like embroidered flower coming off the shoulder. And so I go, "Oh, Carly, that's a nice shirt." And she looked at me weird and she's like, that's weird. You never compliment me on what I'm wearing. I go, "Oh, well, normally you just wear a plain t-shirt, but today I noticed you put on a nice shirt. So I just thought I would compliment you on it." And she just burst out laughing. And then because she laughed, then it triggered like, "Oh, hey, moron, you like actually made an attempt to say something nice that ended sounding like an ass again." And so, but by then she'd worked for me so long, it was just par for the course. But
she knew it wasn't like a backhanded compliment.
Yeah, she just knew I suck. And so she let me off the hook right away.
So I always like to kind of steer things back to Salt Lake City and ask a couple of Salt Lake City related questions. If somebody was visiting Salt Lake City for a day, is there anything that Levi would say, "Go check this out. This is really cool"?
Yeah, well, I've unfortunately lived and experienced a lot of amazing things in life through my digestive system. So I would recommend restaurants.
Well, let's hear the favorite local eating spots or favorite restaurants here in the Salt Lake area.
So I've been gone 3 years, but at the time, because now I hear there's other ones that I haven't tried, but favorite Italian is Valter's downtown.
Okay, yeah.
And Valter's an amazing guy. Yep. Favorite Greek is Aristo's. Favorite Mexican is Alamexo or Frida Bistro. I think these are all local joints too.
Yeah.
Favorite.
Love Frida Bistro.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some other? Oh, Mazza for Mediterranean. We've given up on Mediterranean in the Bay Area because Mazza spoiled us. It's so good. Yeah. What other genres of food am I missing?
Let's see.
Just a good. Do you have a favorite burger? Are you a burger guy?
I know you have a favorite sushi spot.
I'm not a burger guy. I've had like one or two burgers in the last decade. I know I'm really disappointing Chrissy right now because she's never met a cheeseburger.
She's a burger
she doesn't like.
Burger girl. I don't know how you can't only want burgers all the time, but that's okay.
They're like snowflakes, right? They're all individually unique. I learned that from you.
I think I said that one of the first times I ever talked to you.
Yeah. Seriously, I wasn't joking. I learned that from you. So burgers is a bad one to ask me about.
I was just curious. I don't know. It's no big deal. Anything else you want to ask him about, Chrissy? I mean, I think it's good if as we're kind of wrapping this up and winding this down, I've had a great chat getting to know you. I think it's important if you're a local business here in, Utah to look you guys up. I mean, what is it? Just nav.com? I mean, is there any other resources that they should look at? I mean, I'll put those links up with this podcast episode at iamsaltlake.com. I mean, how can people get in touch?
Yeah, you can go to nav.com, see the phone number, hit support at or Levi at nav.com if they want to shoot me an email.
And Levi does write a ton of articles for different news outlets, business news outlets that are really amazing. There's one that I want to share because we didn't get to go into this. Yeah.
Well, if you want to go, we can go into
company culture.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
He wrote up a piece on company culture that is amazing, and I think it would be cool to share with this because it's a very unique. He's a very unique outlook. Well, especially
do you
as
want
a
to
CEO.
talk about it a little bit, really quick, or?
Well, sure. Do you want to talk about culture for just a minute?
Sure, you bet.
So I guess I was just curious, like, what is the company's culture at NAV, and why did you establish it, and, how did you institute it, and why was that important to you?
So like most things that hopefully I do okay or really well, I screwed up many times before I figured out the right way to do things. And a lot of things that we do here are very deliberately done because I didn't like how we did it somewhere else at one of my other companies. But it's really pretty simple. We need to care about the customers and we need to care about our employees. Like I talked about customer love and employee love before. Everything flows off. That doesn't mean that you can't be tough with someone that isn't performing, right? Like it's good for their career if they perform as well. So that's, call it tough love or whatever. But to me, people get mixed up on this topic of culture, and it's ping pong tables, or if you bring in a masseuse at 3, or free lunches, how fancy the office is. To me, that's just all window dressing, and those can be vanity metrics around whether you have a good culture. I think that can lead to a bad culture. So for me, it comes down to what are the values of the organization? What's the mission and vision? Do people buy into that? And do you use those values? And values, by the way, aren't right or wrong. They're appropriate for some people in a certain setting or not. And do we behave according to those values? So one of our values is indivisible, which it communicates a few things, but one is that we have each other's back. So anytime I say I've been at a company, that means it was my company and my screw up, but I've been at a company where there's all kinds of politics and drama and things like that. Like I hate that. It drives me nuts. So if you are not indivisible at this company, you won't last. If you don't have other people's back, and if you're causing problems or trying to play a political game, you're done. You won't fit in here. So you use those principles to guide decisions, customer decisions, resolve conflict. And there is conflict. Conflict is great. Conflict is okay. It's just, how do you resolve that, and what are the intent of the individuals? So those all play a piece. And then for us in particular, I kind of felt like a lot of times like a square peg trying to fit into a round hole in Utah. I grew up Mormon, but I've never been a really good in the box Mormon, no matter how hard I tried. And now I would describe myself as a heterodox Mormon, but there are a lot of diverse people in Utah. So I'm pretty deliberate about our approach in trying to have a diverse workforce. So that's another that flows into culture as well, which again isn't right or wrong. Somebody wants to have a workforce that's not diverse. That's fine too. But to me, it's boring as hell. So I think diversity matters, one, because life is funner. So it's just a selfish reason. Like if everybody's different, you have more to talk about and funner flavor of life. I think that we have a highly diverse customer base. So I believe it's illogical to assume that if we are all clones of each other, that we're going to come up with the best product and the best message for our customers that are diverse. And in Utah in particular, I think it's a major competitive advantage in hiring if you have a diverse workforce, because I think there's a lot of companies here that I'd like to joke, it's like going to elders quorum when you show up at work. Like everybody's just kind of a clone of each other. And so I think we see it at this company where it's easier for us to hire a more diverse workforce because you can walk through the office and see, and this is all I care, is that people know I can be myself here. And I don't have to worry about anything other than being myself and performing. And I think that's more unique in Utah than it is in other cities, for better, for worse. But for us, it's for better because we just get great.
Sure.
Great
I love it. I mean, I visited a handful of times. You have a great diversity here.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially for a tech company, the amount of women in Utah that in a tech company that work here, and like half of them are engineers, which I don't even know where everybody found them, because I didn't know that there were that many women in Utah. Like, it's really awesome. It's the most diverse place I've ever been to, even counting when I lived in Wisconsin.
Well, cool. No, I'm glad you brought that up, Chrissy. I'm glad we got to talk about that. And we'll put that link up with the show notes with this podcast. Thank you so much, Levi. And again, nav.com. Any other links? I guess you're on Facebook and all that too. I mean, probably. I don't know. I always
stalking, maybe or maybe not encouraged.
Facebook and Twitter. Well, no, I mean like Nav. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I won't put you out there. I don't know. But anyway, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We'll end it there. And thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Many thanks again to Levi King for coming on this podcast. I had a heck of a conversation with him, getting to know him, getting to know Nav.
I feel lucky because I get to hear his stories all the time.
Well, you're lucky to really, I mean, honestly, Chrissy, you have no idea how lucky you are to work at such an awesome place.
Oh, no. The thing is, I do know. I mean, maybe I don't, but because I've worked at other places. I think you take it a little for granted. I do. I probably do.
You know, what they're doing to help small business. Again, I mean, iamsaltlake.com/268. Go there for episode 268. We'll put the links for Nav and all their contact information. I guess their phone number. Give them a call, right, Chrissy? If somebody's a small business.
Yeah, you can call. They'll help. They'll talk to anybody. There's like consultants for free. Just call them.
So reach out. I mean, if you're a small business, I know they did some stuff for my brother.
Yeah,
with his business he's doing
his, shop
down in Pleasant Grove. So please reach out to him. Let him know you heard him on I Am Salt Lake. Say, hey, you guys, I heard about Nav on I Am Salt Lake. That'd be really, really cool.
And it'll make me look kind of cool at work. You guys, come on.
I wish I could bring my work on here, but they're not cool enough. Anyway, hey, let's talk about Patreon. I had a really cool idea of what I want to do for Patreon supporters. So I want to kind of release episodes a week early, more or less. You know, I got this idea from listening to the new Richard Simmons podcast, where he releases the episodes out early for people, subscribers. And I know a lot of podcasts are doing it. And I was like, well, what can I do to entice people to become Patreon supporters, help fund the show? As a lot of people know, I mean, we're going to have a baby here soon. And I'm not going to have as much free time on my hands. I mean, I'm already working, 40, 50 hours a week at my day job, and then trying to do a podcast on top of it. And it's just, I'm starting to pull my hair out, and this baby's not even born. So what I would like to do is I would like to see this podcast become a little more listener supported, where I can hopefully do it full time, create better content for you guys, create even a better show than what it is. And I think we could do that with Patreon. Yeah. I really do.
I mean, if every listener just donates $1 a month,
they
get access to things.
Wow. I mean,
it would help us keep growing.
If you find any value with I Am Salt Lake, please consider becoming a Patreon supporter. I mean, we put out a free episode every week, guys. I mean, this is the least you can do. And for, a $5 a month Patreon supporter, you're going to get extra content. You're going to get your some of the interviews early, if not all of them. I want to start releasing other stuff there. You get a little
sticker, a koozie.
Yeah, you get we got stickers, koozies. We're going to be constantly making stuff for you guys. Go to iamsaltlake.com/supporter. Find out more about that and how you can get those extra interviews. Hey, this episode of the podcast is sponsored by Jed's Barbershop. With 3 locations now, you have no reason to not always look your best. Go get a haircut, a beard trim, or even a straight razor shave. Jed's Barbershop is open 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday 9 to 7, Sunday 12 to 5. Their brand new 3rd location had just opened up at 167 East, 900 South, right next to Randy's Records. They also have a downtown location, 212 South, 700 East, and in Sugar House at 2153 East, 2100 South. Hey, no appointments necessary. You can call in advance, though, and get your name put on the list, and they will take care of you. Hey, they were also just recently voted Best in State by City Weekly and KSL. head on over to jedsbarbershop.com for more information. Hey, speaking of Jeds, there was a really cool message posted on Facebook here from listener of the podcast, Kelton Clark.
Hi, Kelton.
Yeah, hey, Kelton. I mean, I know he's hopefully listening. He just posted this on Facebook, and I think it's really cool, the people that have been saying about the awesome haircuts that they've been getting at Jeds.
We've actually, just this last week, maybe 2 weeks, had people come out of the woodwork and say, I went to Jed's for the first time because of you.
Well, Jared,
awesome.
one of our newest Patreon supporters, he came to last week's interview.
Yep. I know Natasha Maurer.
Natasha Maurer mentioned it, and it's just been really cool to be like, wow, this is really cool.
It's awesome.
But I just want to read this. He said, I just got back from Jed's Barbershop after hearing Chris Hollifield talk about it many times on I Am Salt Lake podcast. And wow, best haircutting experience ever. Go to this place. It's amazing. First timers get a hot towel and head massage. It made me feel fantastic, and these guys know how to cut hair. So true. That hot towel. Chris, you have probably never gotten a hot towel.
No, because I'm a chick. Do they do that for chicks?
I have no idea.
Can I go in and be like, I want everything except the haircut?
They just wrap that around your face, and you are so relaxed.
Do you know what that makes me think of?
What?
Do you remember Peter Pan, the cartoon? Did you ever watch that when you were little?
I watched the movie.
The movie, right? Yeah, the movie cartoon. When Smee's giving Hook a straight razor shave and he does the hot towel wrap.
I don't remember that.
So great. Go watch it. It'll make you laugh.
Anyway, this is really cool. We love it. You know, if you guys go to Jed's and you heard about it on the podcast, tell them, first of all. Say, hey, I heard you guys on I Am Salt Lake. Second, take a picture maybe of you there. Tag us in it. Tag Jed's Barbershop.
Yeah.
We'd love to know about your experiences. It's really cool.
Absolutely.
And like I said, they have 3 locations. If you go to the location on 900 South, if you look on the very far board, there is you can see me on the wall. It's really quite
it's awesome.
I'm a bit of a narcissist here by saying go in there and look at it. But it's really cool. We're actually going to be bringing the artist of that, Jerry, here in a few weeks on the podcast. Really excited to find out her story. But anyway, many thanks to Jed's Barbershop for, kind of helping fund the podcast as well a little bit. And for sponsoring I Am Salt Lake.
Yeah, they're great supporters.
But let's see. Like I said, Patreon supporters, iamsaltlake.com/supporter. But next week's episode, you're going to get it early. We chatted with Chef Brandon Price from Even Stevens. That's on next week's episode. You're going to want to hear this one. You can hear it early by being a Patreon supporter. But let's close out this episode. Again, thank you to Levi King for coming on the podcast. Go check out iamsaltlake.com for all the contact information, how to subscribe, how to become a supporter, and all that.
And hey, leave us an iTunes review if you get a chance. That would be super amazing because it'll help other people find us. It boosts our ratings. And it helps this podcast get exposed to more people. Believe it or not everybody knows about it yet. So what? That's crazy. you might think everybody does. Share this podcast with your family and friends. Let's grow an army here in Salt Lake City. An army of support. Anything else you want to mention, Chrissy, before we let the fine people of Salt Lake City go? I don't think so. Get out and enjoy this beautiful spring weather. Oh, my gosh. It's a beautiful week out there, guys. It's gorgeous. Get out, enjoy the city, support local. And good night, Grammy.